Welcome back to GMG Movie Recaps. Today I will show you an action, adventure, a fantasy film from 2014, titled Hercules. So let's dive right in and explore this thrilling cinematic experience. Iolaus of Athens, a storyteller, is trying to buy time by telling pirates the legend of his uncle Hercules. In 358 BC on the Macedonian coast of northern Greece, he is being held captive. Zeus, the ruler of the gods, was his father, but Alcmene, a mortal woman, was his mother. Hera, the queen of Zeus, attempted to assassinate Hercules since she thought it was insulting that the two of them were such a bastard, but Hercules was practically invincible due to his father's influence. Once he reached manhood, the gods required him to leave the 12 labors. If he survived them all, Hera would grant him the right to live in peace. He battled fierce beasts like the Hydra, the Erymanthian boar, and the Nemean lion, whose hide was so hard that Hercules had to beat it with just his bare hands, because no weapon could pierce it. Iolaus' tale doesn't impress the pirates, who don't believe a word he says. But just then, donning the lion's hide on his head, Hercules shows up to save him. The fact that there are 40 pirates doesn't worry them, but numbers are meaningless, because Hercules can fight alongside several men at once, and because his team has joined him. Amphiaraus of Argos, Autolycus of Sparta, Tydeus of Thebes, and Atalanta of Scythia, an Amazon archer, are some of the other characters. Together, this band of mercenaries takes out the pirates with ease, and saves Iolaus. Autolycus advises Iolaus to embellish the tale of Hercules, so that people will accept it, after counting the heads for which they will be compensated, while Amphiaraus sees a vision from the flames in which they predict a lion and a crow will fight across a sea of corpses. Later, the group celebrates their victory at a local pub. Hercules confides in Autolycus his desire to depart for the continents, beyond the seas in search of serenity, taking Tydeus with him, because he is the only one capable of controlling his fury. The tavern suddenly goes silent, as a number of soldiers arrive with Princess Urgenia of Thrace. She requests Hercules and his squad to accompany her to the palace to hear her father's proposal, and offers a sizable amount in gold in exchange. Iolaus sees that the guard shields are emblazoned with ravens. Given that Hercules' emblem is a lion, this would be in accordance with Amphiaraus' prophecy. Hercules is unable to help but notice a sizable gathering of refugees, hidden behind the palace's walls. When they first arrive, they are greeted by Urgenia's son Ares, who is a huge fan of Hercules, and is familiar with all of his tales, as well as General Cytocles, commander of the Thracian army, who doesn't appear too pleased about their arrival. Hercules recalls a 3-year-old episode, in which he slew a Hydra, a group of men wearing lizard-like helmets, for King Eurystheus of Athens, who proclaimed him a hero in front of a sizable audience cheering his name. As they ascend the stairs to enter, Hercules thinks back to that incident. Hercules does his best to dismiss the memories and focus on the present, as it abruptly becomes unpleasant when pictures of his wife and children being slain flash over the screen. The party encounters Lord Codus, monarch of Thrace, who makes fun of Amphiaraus for having little insight into the future other than his own demise, and dismisses Atalanta's abilities because of her gender. However, she swiftly disproves him by blasting the guards' helmets out of their hands. He extends an invitation to dinner and informs them of their predicament. The nation is engaged in a civil war with the savage warlord Rhesus, who is rumored to command an army of centaurs. After Rhesus burns their villages, Codus shows Hercules all the refugees that arrive daily. He remarks that he has lost most of his soldiers, and that his present army is made up of farmers. Together with his daughter, he gives Hercules a speech about bringing peace to the nation that persuades him to take the position. The following day, Hercules and his squad start training the farmers who have become soldiers. They test them by putting a weak shield wall to the test. A few hours later, Hercules has another meeting with Codus, who has learned information on Rhesus from one of his spies named Phineus. Within 6 days, the tyrant will attack the Besai tribe in central Thrace, and Codus intends to seize the opportunity to march there and stop him before he advances any farther. Hercules objects to the plan and argues that the army needs more time to prepare, but Codus ignores him and orders him to get ready, because they would be marching the following day, after assisting Atalanta in removing Cytocles. Unwanted attention. Later that evening, Hercules sees Ares sneaking around to watch Tydeus sleeping tethered to a chariot, and nearly injuring him when he gets too close. Tydeus was born at a time of strife, and when Hercules discovered him, he resembled an animal more than a human. Tydeus is taken from the area and Hercules explains this. Hercules still regards him as his most devoted warrior, despite the fact that the event he witnessed badly traumatized him to the point where he no longer speaks at all and relives his ordeal every night. After that, he returns the Ares to Urgenia, who is now working at the hospice, because she learned how to heal herself, in order to be of some assistance following the loss of so many medical professionals. Hercules gives the Nemean lion's tooth to Ares before departing, hinting that his own offspring should have received it instead. The following day, As the army prepares to march, Hercules discovers Iolaus hiding among the soldiers, with plans to join the battle. Before sending him to the chariot with cities, he tells him that he is a storyteller and not a fighter. The three of them then set out for Besai. When they finally arrive at the settlement, they learn that it is too late, for Rhesus has already arrived and destroyed everything, as evidenced by the sea of bodies that exactly matches Amphiaraus' vision. Strangely enough, some of the victims on the ground appear to have been there for days, while other bodies are still fresh. Because this has been a trap all along, these bodies are the ones that suddenly awaken and assault them. Hercules orders a shield wall to develop around Codus, while he and his men battle. Believing the Besai tribe is under the power of Rhesus, Hercules skillfully breaks the tip of one of Atalanta's arrows and, when the tribe leader approaches, stabs him in the forehead with it, giving the impression that he has been killed with a single punch. The army finds this incredibly inspiring, and begins to believe that the gods are on their side. The tribe leader wants to challenge him directly. The actual conflict then starts. Although Hercules' team kills as many tribesmen as they can, there are still too many of them, and eventually the shield wall is breached. They devise a straightforward strategy. Hercules and Amphiaraus get their chariots back and start circling the shield wall, while pushing and slaughtering the tribesmen in their path. The remaining soldiers take advantage of this opportunity to charge, but the tribesmen know when they've lost and flee. Rhesus is not visible, but an oddly shaped figure is visible watching from a distance. Quartz agrees to give Hercules additional time to train, after he explains to him that losing half of his army is equally his fault, and Rhesus because he did warn him that the farmers weren't yet ready to fight. General Cytocles wants to execute Phineus for leading them into a trap, but Autolycus stops him and declares that he will now be in charge of scouts, even if he still threatens Phineus and cautions him not to make the same mistake twice. Princess Urgenia and the medics come a short while later, and they are brought to Hercules' private tent, so that no one may see him bleeding, like a common mortal due to an injury he sustained in combat. Following her departure, Hercules has a dream about an ancient recollection, in which he sees the bodies of his wife and children, his hands smeared in blood, and King Eurystheus banishing him from the realm, rather than having him put to death, so that he would have to live with the shame of having slaughtered his family for all time. When he goes to the forest to investigate, after hearing some children laughing, he discovers his dead family buried among the tribesmen. Jolting him out of this nightmare, Hercules prepares to face the three-headed dog Cerberus that is devouring them until Tydeus suddenly arrives behind him, and makes him remember that he has been daydreaming. Amphiaraus quickly recognizes what has happened to him in the morning because it is not the first time, and he counsels Hercules that in order to find peace, he must complete this last effort and face the beast. Hercules, though, believes he is simply crazy. Princess Urgenia approaches the other members of the team to find out the truth about the rumors. While the two guys are engaged in private conversation, she is told that no one is aware of the reality, and that Hercules was discovered alone one day, surrounded by the dead of his family, but he has no memory of it. Every time he went on an expedition, he would come across one of his team members and offer them kindness, winning their allegiance. The crew just chose to play along with the stories, to help them land employment because he was so amazing at what he did that no one could think he could be mortal. They speculate that he may have experienced the blood rage, a typical condition that causes fighters' minds to become foggy. Hercules and the group then put Codus' army on a very rigorous training schedule. They are given replicas of Hercules' armor and weaponry, and they are instructed in the use of the lance, bow, and arrow, sword, and hand-to-hand fighting. Eventually, they are able to build a shield wall that Tydeus cannot breach. Iolaus observes the entire time from a covert location, working out covertly. One day, Phineus returns bearing fresh information. Rhesus is nearby Mount Asticus with a legion of centaurs, and Hercules desires to engage him there, before moving farther into their domain. Although the forest's ability to halt the chariots makes it potentially deadly, he has a strategy. Amphiaraus knows he will die in a week, but regretfully can't help by telling them if they win or not because he can't see that. After a few days, when the army is prepared to fight, they reach Mount Asticus but discover no enemy camp. However, the enemy is there. Rhesus' army is visible on the horizon, and as they get closer, they realize that the army is not made up of centaurs, but rather is simply a group of riders, who are creating an optical illusion, by keeping their backs to the sun. Phineus, who has actually been working with the enemy the entire while, is with Rhesus as he approaches Codus for a conversation. Codus is asked to give up, but when he refuses, both sides prepare for combat. Codus' army raises the shield wall and opens the flanks, but Atalanta and her archers surprise the enemy by ambushing them. As they approach their side while riding chariots out of the woodland, Amphiaraus lifts his arms, prepared to embrace his doom, but miraculously not a single flaming arrow strikes him. Although Rhesus' army is larger, Hercules' warriors have a better formation, and soon they are overwhelming the opposition. The battle is drawn out and difficult. Rhesus' warriors start to flee, but he chooses to stay and confront Hercules directly. which turns out to be a disastrous decision, because Hercules quickly takes his horse, and throws them both to the ground. Later, when they return to the palace with Rhesus bound, Codus starts degrading him in front of his people, but Hercules feels bad for him and gives him the strength to carry on. Rhesus tries to convince him, as they walk along, that Codus is really a despot, and that it was Codus who torched all those villages, not his army. Rhesus is tethered to 2 columns during the celebration dinner, and displayed as a trophy. Princess Eugenia wants to bring him water, but Codus forbids it. When Thrace is no longer divided, Codus becomes the absolute ruler, and it is then time for his coronation. Rhesus calls out Codus once more, and as Princess Eugenia leaves the room, Hercules becomes suspicious and pursues her, pleading with her to reveal what she knows. She acknowledges that Rhesus is telling the truth, when he claims that Codus started this war, by poisoning her husband, the real king, in order to usurp his throne. She did it, though, because Codus threatened to kill her child if she tried to rebel, not because she supports her father's behavior. Right before they are discovered by General Cyticles, who informs them that Codus is looking for them, Eugenia tries to persuade Hercules to take Ares with him. When they depart, but Hercules rejects her offer, Hercules confronts Codus and accuses him of betraying him. But Codus thinks it's absurd that mercenaries, who would do anything for wealth, have developed morals. He offers Hercules to command his army, and professes to wanting to rule his own kingdom. However, when Hercules declines, he pays him and his group what they had previously agreed upon. Before evicting them, Hercules offers Autolycus his money as they get at their chariots, because he wants to stay and save Thrace. Atalanta reminds him they don't follow him, because they feel they owe him anything. They follow him because they are a family. He doesn't expect the team to stay with him, and lets them all leave with their reward, and live happily ever after, except for Autolycus, who decides to leave with the gold. After labeling them crazy, the entire crew resolves to continue fighting. The company returns to the palace with ease, but General Cyticles is waiting for them and has his soldiers surround them. He forces them to put down their swords, and then informs cities that he has heard Eugenia plotting with Hercules to steal Ares from him. As Eugenia is being held captive by the soldiers, Codus takes the child from her, and Ares tries to ask Hercules for assistance, offering him the lion's tooth in secret, before Codus drags him back by the hair. After being knocked out while attempting to save the infant, Hercules awakens a few hours later tied to a wall, and with Cerberus standing in front of him. He realizes it's actually 3 wolves, and they appear familiar to him as his vision gradually clears. They are in the ownership of King Eurystheus, who is currently moving into the region alongside cities. After cooperating for a long time to rule all of Greece, Hercules slowly regains his memory, after observing all of his companions imprisoned around him. The wolves attacked his family that night, 3 years ago, after Eurystheus had slipped a sedative in his drink, to make him helpless. Cerberus has always been a figment of his imagination. This is true, Eurystheus acknowledges, and he did it because he didn't like how his people had chanted Hercules' name louder than his, as if he were some sort of deity. This posed a challenge to his authority, thus Eurystheus had to be taken out. A man with ambition may be bought, but a man without ambition, such as Hercules, is too risky. Hercules feels impotent because he can only stand by, while Codus men free Eugenia from her cage to be put to death. But when Amphiaraus tells him that everyone believes in him, and that he should believe in himself as well, Hercules realizes who he is and musters all of his might to break the wall's shackles and go rescue Eugenia. Eugenia opens the cage doors with the axe she was about to be executed with, while Codus and the others flee the chamber, and leave him in the hands of the wolves. The wolves put up a good battle, biting him and injuring him in different places on his body, but Hercules is able to defeat them, one by one, and fling them away, stabbing the final one with the lion's tooth. He had finally finished his last travail. The group is set free by Eugenia, and they take some weapons that the soldiers left behind. As Hercules displays his strength by raising a metal door to let them out of the prison, soldiers attempt to block their progress as they ascend, but they have little trouble retaliating and pushing past them. When a lance on fire is thrown at them, Amphiaraus believes that his time has finally come, and raises his arms to meet his demise. However, Hercules snags the spear and uses it to kill a soldier, sparing his comrade. Hercules pursues Eurystheus. While the group deals with the remaining soldiers, Eurystheus begins offering a number of excuses for what transpired to Hercules' family, including that he had been under Codus' control. Hercules doesn't care about any of that. He grabs Eurystheus by the neck, throws him on the throne, and stabs him with his own dagger to exact ultimately justice for his family. Eurystheus also tries to rule over him as a king, and even offers him money. After all of this is over, he can finally move on and find peace. His train of thought is abruptly disrupted by the whip around his neck. It's Cyticles, who has just thrown Hercules to the ground, and is about to kill him when Iolaus surprises him from behind, and stabs him instead. The two of them rejoin the group that has rescued Rhesus. After finally referring to his nephew as a warrior, as they leave the palace together, they immediately freeze upon seeing Codus, and his army waiting for them, Codus threatens to kill Ares, who is being kept hostage by a soldier. If Hercules doesn't give up, the soldier suddenly dies after being stabbed by a dagger that was thrown at him. Autolycus, who had returned to assist, a new struggle breaks out as Ares, now free, rushes to his mother, and Tydeus leaps in to shield him from the approaching arrows. Tydeus successfully takes down the most of the archers, while also taking a lot of arrows in return. Ares joins them without incident. Hercules lifts up Tydeus and watches him die, after he says the sole word he's ever said in his life, Hercules' name, as the rest push the braziers over to form a wall of fire between them and Codus' army. After the majority of the flames have died down, Codus' army begins charging, and Hercules sees only one way to stop them. He once more uses his extraordinary strength to push a huge statue of Hera off its base, which then explodes into hundreds of pieces, crushing many soldiers and pushing Codus into the abyss. The soldiers start to kneel and shout for Hercules, as they welcome him as their new leader, after learning that their monarch has died. The end. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel and like it to motivate me to bring you more stories like this.